Howdy, good morning. Well, is it still? I guess it still is. It's like still 11 for me. Not afternoon yet. It's streaming a lot later than usual. I did take care of a few things here and there. Probably won't be streaming for too long. Replay this. Like this song. Just want to listen to it again. My opinion on knee chairs. Even those images you've been posting. Those have got to be the dumbest looking things I've ever seen. I just would much rather have just a nice freaking recliner to sit back in. I don't understand how those weird slanted chairs could be comfortable at all, man. I need to just give myself a slight refresher. So much stuff happened last time, dude. They're abominations for sure. They sure look very strange. There's some people like it, but I don't know. I don't think I can be one of them. I just like me a big old chair to sit in. So in the entirety of episode 1, and we still don't know. Still have no idea what this is supposed to mean. It's supposed to be a hint for the gold, but it's also like a ritual for summoning Beatrice. But it can't just be like the black magic ritual. It has to be... The location of gold still has to be in here, right? Otherwise, the whole point of the... like, Kinzo's, like, miracle wouldn't matter at all. Like, he's betting it on whether people can find the gold first, or... I guess if this can be completed first to revive Beatrice. Oh, man. Is Beatrice even real? There's still this first part, too. The key. I have no idea what that is. Already publicly display the location of the gold within the epitaph. And there's the riddle. Time limit here. Which is game record. Right, I remember, I was gonna look up what each of these mean. Like the 7 stakes, but I bet if I tried looking that up, it'd probably just give me a whole bunch of like Umineko spoilers or something. since a lot of people seem to be getting into this as of late. Simply solve the riddle. So easy. Solve the riddle, he says. Also, the whole ending, too. Apparently, just everyone is dead. And then in the tea party, the witch is taunting Battler, trying to get him to admit she's real. Like, what could possibly be the explanation for everything? The receipt and the door, the locked rooms, the gold. Who actually killed Canon? That's. Hmm. I don't believe that. That can't be what happened. Chewed to bits by demons and went to hell is so fucked up, dude. Well, and then there was that mystery tea party. Where I got the tip that I gotta figure out the rules. Like, there's a special set of rules going on here. To be able to solve everything. Hmm. Oh, my coffee got cold. I don't know what I'm in for here, dude. It's either gonna be a time loop, or maybe a new set of people are coming to try to solve the mystery after finding Maria's note. Why am I grabbing my controller as if I'm gonna be walking around like 3D or something? Maybe I've been playing too much Grid Line. Right, to credits. So I could always just rewatch like the end of my last VOD or something. I do remember like most of the content within it. Uh, I'm not gonna get anywhere by just thinking about what happened in episode 1. Difficulty level is standard. Might as well at least start by taking the... No need to think overly hard about any of this. Quietly accept all that is about to happen. That is all that's being asked. Just accept it all. Hmm. Level 2. Legend of the Turn of the Golden. Good morning. The Golden Witch eagerly awaits your arrival. Please do grant her that wish. You will be able to do... Were you able to get a good rest and perfect your strategy, which expects a lot from you and is more than ready to launch an assault right from the start? I also look forward to seeing your strategy. The difficulty level is extreme, which intends to make you surrender all at once. So what, we're gonna just jump right in? Right into like the... Whenever we get that letter or something? What made Rudolph think he was gonna die? And before we start, I'm still thinking about the whole thing. Tear apart the two that are close. It's still bothering me. It's probably me overthinking it. But I feel confident that not both of them needed to die. But even then, I go back to things still not making sense. Even accounting for some of the other stuff. Dude. Alright, whatever. I'm not gonna get anywhere talking in circles. Story is very obviously fictional. Fantastic.
ジョージ様、見てください。
Oh? Shannon.
可愛いですよ。ほらほら。
His dopey face, dude. So this is before everything, because he's obviously alive here. Right? Would Shannon have ever actually gone out anywhere? Being a servant? What's going on then? Shannon found a pair of hammerhead sharks swimming playfully in the tank and as excited as a grade schooler seeing an aquarium for the first time. Behold, looking fancy. Nice suit. Just eat them.
そんなのかわいそうです。知ってますか？水族館に来て美味しそうなんて言い出すのは世界中でも日本人だけなんだそうですよ。
Is that right?
そうなんだ。アメリカ人でもイタリア人でもきっと食べちゃいたいって言うと思うよ。
Thinking about how delicious the fish are probably is not like the first thing that comes to mind if I were to like go to an aquarium, like start looking at fish.
その
似合ってるよ。本当に。
Oh, she's still the servant. A young but experienced servant. She's normally calm and performs her job efficiently, but she messes up when she gets nervous. Furthermore, Shana is nothing more than a pseudonym. Alright, so this is the same description. Yeah, the same description. Yes, dog tags? Shannon clutched at her chest with both hands in embarrassment. She apparently felt like she was being made fun of for wearing these clothes she wasn't used to. Though George's face didn't show it, he had actually said something so completely unexpected that it surprised even him. And he was as embarrassed as Shannon on the inside. However, when he saw how embarrassed Shannon was, he started to imagine he was teasing a girl he liked, and instead of embarrassment, a ticklish amusement welled up in him. No, he wasn't just imagining it. He really was teasing the girl he liked. Before now, he wouldn't have expected to hear a line like that anywhere these days, not even in a manga or something. In fact, if he's seen another couple acting like this, his first instinct would be to start throwing rocks at them. But even if someone were to start throwing rocks at us now, I'm sure it'd be no different than confetti celebrating our relationship. Fucking rude rocks? I can't even remember those lonely days when I felt jealous of couples who were completely oblivious to their surroundings. To use an old-fashioned phrase, these really are rose-colored days I'm living in. So entranced. Yeah, I'm so entranced that I barely noticed that massive tank in the world's largest aquarium anymore. Instead, all I see are the expressions flitting across Shannon's face as she plays with the fish.
すごいですね。クジラを泳がせることができる大水槽なんて初めて見ました。
A whale can be in that tank?
この大水槽がここの最大の売りだそうだからね。なんでも世界で最大なんだそうだよ。
Getting a whale in a fish tank seems absurd.
それはすごいですね。本当に素敵です。水槽じゃなくて、まるで海の一部をナイフでスッと切り取ってここに運んできたみたい。
そうだね。これはもう立派な小さな海だね。
Despite its size, I hadn't thought of the tank as anything more than a tank. That's why I found her metaphor so interesting. No matter how far humans broaden their experiences, they always end up viewing the world through the lens of their own value. Am I gonna be going through the events but through George's POV instead of Battler's? Maybe that's why it's so interesting to interact with people who have different worldviews. I voiced my thoughts on this. Responded.
確かにこれは本当の海ではないかもしれません。でもここに泳ぐ彼らが海だと信じたなら、これは確かに海なんです。
George is so cool, he's the main character now.
たとえ有限の水槽の中だったとしてもね。
海だって有限ですよ。ううん、仮に無限だったとしても、私たちは生きているうちにどれほどの広さを行き来できるんでしょうね。きっとそれは海よりずっと狭い。
確かに皮肉な話だね。世界はこんなにも広いのに、僕たち人間のほとんどは自分の国からも出ずに生涯を終える。
Yeah, I guess I never left. Been to many states.
そこが完成された世界だと
Never left
信
the
じられ
country
るな
though.
ら、たとえ狭い井戸の底だったって立派な世界で海なんです。そこに住むカエルにとっては。
Shannon, who spent her days as a servant on a small island 10 kilometers in circumference called Rockinjima, said that with a smile. States are basically countries. Ooh. Battler, but where is he? So far I'm getting, it's not a time loop, but a rewind to view events from a different perspective. How much of a difference would that make? Most of them stuck together, like, almost the entire time. Beatrice, get out of here. You're not real. You're not real. I'm here to prove it. It's all a trick. Smoke and mirrors. Oh, fancy looking restaurant. After we finished walking through the whole aquarium, we had a small late afternoon lunch at a restaurant with a nice view. The word buffet has the power to make any boy's heart leap. I was like that myself once. But with Shannon beside me, this buffet felt different. I couldn't shamefully pile on things I liked. Did I read that right? I couldn't shamefully pile on only the things I liked. Okay. I was, how should I put it, worried about my appearance and chose a menu suited for a snob. Toast, salad, and coffee. That's... Gotta eat more than that when you're at a buffet, come on. At least something a little extra. Some meat. If I'd been myself, I would have made a pile of oily stuff like yakisoba, mashed potatoes, gratin, and so on. Mashed potatoes are great.
シャノンはそんな程度でお腹が足りるのかい？だとしたら男ってのは本当に燃費の悪い生き物らしいね。
別にそういうつもりじゃなくて。
Shannon's tray, there was only tea and salad. Very light. Maybe the mere fact that I thought she was a whole plate short proved I was thinking with a man's stomach.
ジョージ様こそそれで足りるんですか？男の方はもう少し召し上がった方が良いかと思います。普段のジョージ様だったら、もう少しお昼を召し上がられていると思いますよ。
しまった、そうか。シャノンには僕が本家で昼食をとるときどれくらい食べてるのかバレてるんだったね。
Yes.
はい。だから今日はお腹の具合でも悪いのかと思いまして。
Shannon was kind enough to guess that I wasn't feeling well. Looks like a stupid attempt to show off made her worry. And apparently my stomach wasn't going to let me show off any longer. Yeah, get more
い
food.
やもう白状するよ。ついついカッコつけちゃってね。女の子と一緒だからって遠慮しちゃって。
だと思いました。親族会議でのお昼の食べっぷりから考えて、それではとても足りないと思いましたので、遠慮なさらずにどうぞもう一皿を取りに行ってきてくださいな。
ずるいな、僕ばっかり恥ずかしいよ。じゃあシャノンはどうなんだい？普段からこんな小食で後ろ宮家のお勤めがこなせるのかい？
と、
Shannon felt silent and blushed bright red. Apparently I wasn't the only one showing off. When I realized that, my embarrassment disappeared completely.
なんだ、シャノンもそれじゃ足りないんじゃないか。そうだよそうだよ。普段のランチならもう少し量が多いものをペロリと平らげ
These
てたよ。
idiots trying to impress each other.
女の子のお
Big
腹は
dummies.
魔法でできてるから、これでも平気なんです。
It's her, she's the witch.
ということは僕たちは互いに見えっ張りだったってことになるね。
Magic, her stomach isn't real then. Doesn't need.
もう遠慮はなしにしないかい？
I smiled to show that I wouldn't make fun of her anymore and rose from my seat.
せっかく沖縄まで来たのにゴーヤを食べないのはもったいないからね。
Bitter melon.
ゴーヤの炒め物でも持ってくるよ。
Fried bitter melon. What the
シャノ
heck?
ンも一緒に行こうよ。ほらほら。
はい。
To anyone watching us, we might seem like an incredibly charming and embarrassing couple. But it's only after becoming a couple that you realize, to us, this exchange of words is everything. Our world. That's why no matter how much everyone else stares at us with blank expressions, we never notice. Indeed, at this age, I finally understand the feelings of couples who want to endlessly flirt without any regard for their surroundings. After I returned with a plate piled up with fried food, Shannon arrived with a pretty cake. While laughing at our fake stoicism, we resumed our lunch.
せっかく海を一望できる展望レストランなのにあいにくの曇天が悔やまれるね。
Typhoon. Now, this must be long before that. How much longer before is it, though? Luckily, our window seats gave us a view to seaside scenery, so grandiose. Grandiose? Grandiose? That it extended even beyond our field of vision. However, because of the cloudy sky, we were only seeing a fraction of its usual beauty.
そうですね。晴れていたらさぞや真っ青な海を見せてくれたでしょうに。
そうだね。
There seems like it'd be a lot prettier without all the clouds and
普
fog.
段六軒島で海を見慣れてると思うけど、ここの海はきっと格別な青さを見せてくれたはずだよ。残念だな。
あ、でもお仕事の最中に見る海はどんなに青くても灰色と同じです。でも今日はお仕事中じゃないから、その
Apparently, Shannon was doing her best to say an embarrassing line. But I didn't let her get off easy.
惜しいな。
So close.
ジョージ様と二人きりで見る海なら、たとえ灰色でも真っ青に見えます。
Look at this dude.
って言えたら100点満点でご褒美だったんだけどな。
Yo, a prize?
すみません。
ご褒美は何だったか聞きたい？
その、聞いてもいいものでしたら。
ダメ、教えない。
Wow, rude, mean.
ずるいですよ、そんなの。
I was in elementary school. I was always the kid who got bullied. Whenever everyone teased me, I grew nervous and speechless. The delight of the... Back then, I wondered why everyone teased me. But now, teasing Shannon like this, I understand why. 'Cause it's fun. I can play with emotions however I please. And I can have them all to myself. Right now, I can't think of any greater pleasure. Okay, maybe dial it back a bit? That's why I have to go easy on her. Not as though I want to make her feel embarrassed and upset, but I decided to be nice and change the subject. Best not to be too obstinate.
お昼が終わったら海岸を歩いてみないかい？ひょっとすると雲が晴れて素敵な海が見られるかもしれないよ。
そうですね。
George, please at least try not to sound like a villain. How can he be a villain? He's the best.
行ってみたいです。
He's so great.
うん、そうしよう。でもそのケーキも本当に美味しそうだね。僕も同じものを持ってこようかな。
いけません。お昼にそんなに食べた上にケーキまで食べたら太っちゃいますよ。
You don't want him to get fat?
ジョージ様は秀吉様の血が濃いみたいですから、気をつけないとおデブさんになっちゃいます。
Yes.
じゃあシャノンは僕がおデブになったら嫌いになっちゃう？僕はたとえシャノンがおデブになっちゃっても嫌いにならないよ。
そういう意味じゃなくて、ちゃんと体を気遣わないと健康にって。
母さんにもよく注意されるよ。やっぱり僕も太極拳とかを始めて運動しないとダメかな。
Yo, learn some
ダイエ
fighting
ット
moves.
は無茶な運動よりも食生活の見直しから始めた方がいいんですよ。その上で運動を重ねないと効果が出ないんだそうです。
つまりそれはデザートのケーキは控えろってことだね。じゃあ仕方ないからシャノンがそのケーキを頬張るところを眺めていてあげるよ。
その、ケーキ丸々一つはさすがに食べ過ぎだと思いますけど。
I'm gonna share.
半分くらいだったら大丈夫かもしれません。これ本当に美味しいんですよ。
Gonna cut her own cake and tried to move half to my place. I had no doubt that she wanted to share a delicious cake flavor with me. However, I immediately pulled my plate away from her. She blinked in surprise. She couldn't seem to figure out if I was refusing the cake or not. So I winked, opened my mouth, and said, "Ah." Gonna shove that entire half cake in your mouth all at once?
それが一番したかったんですね。もう、ジョージ様は甘えん坊です。はい。
Whoa, close. With a partly embarrassed, partly exasperated face, Shannon offered the cake to me with fork. Chomp! It tastes like cheap chocolate cake that you might find anywhere. And yet, it was exceptional. Because eating cake in such an embarrassing way, as if it were a couple of perfect fools, was my dream for many years. Made this cake's flavor heavenly. If the earth is destined to end, I wouldn't have any regrets if it happened right now. It was such a moment of bliss. What you wish for. The seagulls. Umineko. After that, we gathered shells, ran from the waves, and enjoyed each other's company while walking along the beach. In the end, the clouds never parted. However, we both believed that the sea reflected in our eyes was a deep blue.
なんだか幸せすぎて怖くなります。
たまに言うね。何を怖がることがあるんだい？
私、後ろ宮家にお仕えする使用人です。そんな私が後ろ宮家に連なる方とこうして 過ぎたことのように思えて。
僕もびっくりしてるよ。シャノンちゃんと出会ったのは昨日今日のことじゃない。何年も前から面識もある。
For years. How many
でも
years?
年に何度もない親族の会合の席で挨拶をするだけ。そんな君とこうして一緒に過ごせる関係になるなんて全然想像できなかったよ。
I'm getting more confused about when this is supposed to be taking place.
それはシャノンもでしょ。
私はその
ん
想像だけはしてました。いえ、想像というよりは妄想みたいなもので、いつも紳士的で思いやりのあるジョージ様とご縁があったらなって、妄想してただけで。
じゃあ僕たちの縁は君のその信じた心のおかげだね。思う力には魔法が宿るんだよ。
Magic! George is the witch.
だから
I
その
knew
魔
he was
法が
evil.
きっと僕らを巡り合わせてくれた。
そうですね。多分きっとそれは本当に魔法だったんだと思います。
でもね、そんなことはないんだよ。僕の中でも毎年出会うたびに美しく見違えていった君の存在はとても大きくなっていた。
Was it too much earlier? Because even during episode 1, she was 16. Was she? Was that ever stated? Guess not directly. I guess you can figure that out. Or like what she said and when she was hired. George is 22? That seems a bit absurd. He doesn't look that old. Then again, it's like anime characters. They don't look that different, so it can't be that much like before the events take place. If it even is before, I don't know what's going on. It has to be a bit before, right?
そして君にとっての僕も同
Ow!
じものだとしたなら、
Darn, why?
今日ここに僕らがあることは必然の結果であって魔法や奇跡なんかじゃないのさ。
ううん、奇跡はあったんです、ジョージ様。
Stopped walking down the beach, gazing out beyond the
奇
sea.
跡？
ううん、魔法あったんです。
I was bewildered by that slightly mysterious phrase, which I sometimes heard her use.
魔法が？
はい、魔法です。言っても信じてくれないでしょうから言いません。
So yeah, does Shannon and George date your favorite scene?
でも確かにその魔法には私とジョージ様を巡り合わせてくれる奇跡を叶える力がありました。
Darn loves George.
それは何かのおまじないのこと？
そうですね。そういうものの類かもしれません。一つ違うのはおまじないなんかじゃなく、本当に本当の。
Talking about. Maybe it's all girls, not the shonen, who tend to treat encounters as miracles or coincidences. For a man like me, you encounter an encounter with a girl is 70% hard work to try and make her like you, 20% courage, and 10% coincidence. The part that makes everything the part that means everything to her is a much smaller factor in my mind. Maybe that way of thinking itself is calculating in typical men. But if I said that out loud, it might dissolve all kinds of magic. In my mind, there were lots of coincidence. Why can't I can't speak. Coincidences. Why is it that word? Coincidence. Coincidences, compromises, and expanded effort on both sides before we gained the relationship we have today. God damn. At the culmination of all that, we get to spend this joyful time together. And if she wants to call that magic, I got no objections to her choice of words. So I'll stand up for that magic.
そうだね。同じ運命を100回繰り返したら、僕と君がこういう関係になる結果は一度しか起こらないものだったかもしれないね。互いを意識し合いながらも、僕たちは他人行儀な関係を今も続けていたかもしれない。そんなよその世界の僕らから見れば、今の僕たちはまさに奇跡のような関係に違いないだろうから。
そういうのじゃなくて、本当に魔法なんです。
It's real magic.
男の方にいくら言ってもこういうのは信じてもらえないんでしょうか。カノン君も全然信じてくれませんし。
信じるよ。僕が信じなくて魔法が解けたら嫌だからね。
ジョージ様。
Small voice, I apologize for saying something that trivialized their magic. I don't seem to be glad to hear me say that. After all, two people believe in the magic of love, it becomes eternal. How
そう
cheesy.
そう。僕からわがままが一つあるんだけど、聞いてもらえないかな。
Whim.
はい、何でしょうか。
そのジョージ様って呼び方、嫌いじゃないけど、もうなしにしないかい。
Oh, this is when he told her to do that. I remember them talking about this
後
under
ろ宮家
the
では対
thing
面
in
も
the
あるだ
rain.
ろうから、六軒島での普段まで強制はしないよ。でも二人きりの時はなしにしよう。うん、そういうルールにしよ
ルールですか。もし破ったらどうなるんでしょう。
う。そうだね。ルール違反には何か罰ゲームがないといけないかもしれないね。そうだな。何聞きたい？
いえ、聞きたくありません。
何がいいか僕も考えておくことにするよ。
はい。3
Oh, I guess I skipped the part of her saying George. Waiting a bit. Like too fast.
素敵な響きだね。嬉しいよ、シャノン。
私もサヨという名前があります。
そっか。ルールはフェアじゃないといけないね。僕もそれを守って今から君のことをサヨと呼ぶことにするよ。
Guess this is also when he learned her real
いい
name.
ね、サヨ。
はい。
Okay. I held her shoulder and drew her close. When I forcefully pulled her delicate body toward me, she dove into my chest like a doll. As I held her head in my arms, we both looked at the
真っ
horizon.
青な海だね。この海を二人で見られてとても嬉しいよ。
私もです。この真っ青な海をあなたと2人で見ることができてとても嬉しいです。
As we gazed at the gray sea and a light rain began to sprinkle down, we kept listening to each other's heartbeat. Sound a wave flows into my ears. Sound of an enraged sea. My body bathed in painfully cold splashes does not allow me to forget. Won't let me forget the memories of the day my fate was broken and smashed. Once tomorrows were literally like looking into a mirror. All I ever saw there was the person I already was. Tomorrow was absolutely no different from today. That was my old fate. But then, for the first time, I saw a different fate beyond the mirror. The witch whispers to me, tempts me to take a bite out of the fruit of knowledge. torments me, saying I'll be furniture as long as I stay in God's paradise. So I decided to choose the path of knowing love and try to become. Those days were like sweet. Were Yeah, those days were like sweet honey. But at the same time, I didn't realize that they'd be the start of a new kind of suffering. I arrived at a small island on a motorboat I only just learned how to use. Oh, this can hardly be called a small island. It's a little more than a rock jutting out into water. Oh? On this rock is a torii and a small shrine. It's probably built to worship the garden deity, Rokenjima. Even though I don't know exactly what it signifies, I know that it has to be something holy. Even in a place like this, I've got to take just one more look around to see if anyone who might get mad at me for see nothing but the stormy ocean. Ijima looming in distance, the waves breaking against Okanjima's steep cliffside. I ready myself. Timidly approach the small shrine. Take the mirror that lies there as an offering. The mirror looks old, cloudy, and dirty. It would probably make any normal mirror seem horribly cheap. However, since the mirror's been placed in a small shrine, its appearance seems to give some sort of divine quality to it. And there's one thing I can tell. This is no simple mirror. It may seem like an old battered mirror to a non-believer like myself, but it has great significance. Is it really okay to break this after being captivated by funny word? What's going on? No, this isn't really a mirror. This is the life I couldn't escape until today. My fate. I'll break it. I'll smash it and seize the life that lies beyond this mirror. If I don't smash it, my life will be a pair of facing mirrors forever. Nothing will ever change in the slightest. The witch whispers to me. She tempts me to take a bite of the fruit of knowledge. Or maybe I already tasted that fruit. After all, I already experienced those maddening emotions. Just as Adam and Eve felt compelled to pluck their fig leaves, I can no longer go on without breaking this. I struggled with conflicting emotions for many days before this moment. Inside my heart, the virtuous part of me kept on fighting the part that sides with the witch. And now, here I am. Did the part of me that's here right now win or lose? There's only one thing I know. To obtain something, you must be ready to lose something. Cowards who don't risk anything, who never try to change anything, will never be given the key that opens the path to a new future. The key is already in my hands. That key is to break this. Smash it. Is there any other effort I can make as furniture in prison in Rokenjima? So this is Shannon's point of view? No. This is the only way for me. Come, have courage. I'll free myself from being mere furniture. By accepting a new kind of suffering, I'll become human. This is surely a small yet large trial I must impose on myself. Come on, smash it. I'll smash it to pieces, the eternally unchanging fate that imprisons me. I raise the mirror high. I think back to the days of conflict that came before. And, finishing my reflections, in the blink of an eye, I throw it down. The thunder roars, crying out against me for my outrageous act. Is it truly the hatred of angels trying to banish me from eternal paradise? I look down at the mirror tumbling at my feet, broken in two equal parts. After making sure I accomplish my task, I scream up at the raging skies.
約束は守りました。今度はあなたが約束を守ってくれる番ですよね。
Thunder roars once more. I've already been banished from paradise. So I have to struggle on my own if I want to live. The witch told me that is the single element of this world. To lose it means losing the world. Like how a canteen with a hole in the bottom can't be filled no matter how much water you pump into it.
約束は守りました。今度はあなたが約束を守る番です。
Oh?
私の願いをベアトリーチェ様。
What the hell, dude? So that magic she was speaking of earlier was her doing this? Just the same, like, opening as before? It is very interesting. I'm not really sure I can see why people would hate it. It's an interestingly different start from episode 1. I think they just hate love stories. It was a bit silly. Ooh. The message in a bottle. Maria's a note. Whoa, we have everyone here. Any cool tips? Got the epitaph already? It's a way better than the first half of episode 4, that's for sure. And one. What? Spoilers? I'm gonna hate episode 4? We're not even there yet. We still got like another 2 months before I make it there. Episode 1 is silly, a bit long. Silly enough. I guess there's no avoiding how long it is when you need to introduce like 18 characters back to back. Any games you recommend for 2025? 100 Line, Last Defense Academy. I've been playing that one on my own. I was thinking about streaming it, but maybe I'll stream like repeat playthroughs to get like some other endings after I beat the game like myself first. But where are we now? Not recommending Umineko. I still need to beat it before I can recommend it. But then again, I guess I didn't beat 100 Line either yet. But I am much further in it than I am in Umineko, I think. Probably. My mind wandered. Back to the days when I could barely imagine the happiness I have now. I was a middle schooler at the time. A normal girl thought about love as much as you'd expect of someone that age. But in truth, it was wrong of me to have that dream. After all, I am furniture. Are we gonna be... I guess I'll just continue. But I'm wondering how it's... If it's gonna keep, like, swapping POVs? Or what? After all, I am furniture. There's nothing more than a tool, not a human. As a person less than human, simply receiving an education was an enormous blessing. So in reality, even thinking about falling in love was more than I deserved. The Ushiromiya Family Conference was a customary event held every October. but relatives sometimes visited at other times. Of course, they didn't come just to drink tea. On this day, Eva's family was visiting the head family on Wakanjima, the three members of Cross's family. Of Cross's family had the three members of Eva's family, and the three members of Eva's family had gathered in the parlor. And were having a friendly chat about recent events. Genji has apology told Kenzo of Eva's family arrival, but he still hadn't come down. He's probably immersed in his research and couldn't spare the time. This often happened, so the others waited patiently for their fickle father to arrive.
ほう、それは頼もしいじゃないか。お父さんのところでたくさん勉強して、早く手助けができるよう頑張りたまえ。
ありがとうございます。今は父の紹介でたくさんの人生の先輩方に本当に貴重な勉強をさせていただいています。そのいずれも学校では学べないことばかりです。
学校で習うのは国語算数やない。ものを学ぶ姿勢と態度を学ぶんや。その基礎ができてようやく生涯をかけた勉強が始まるんやで。ここをな、勘違いしとるやつは生涯学べん石頭や。
Oh, me?
国語算数で満点取れても会社じゃ役に立たへん。
Well, don't. It doesn't end up spending your whole lives as fools who never learn, just getting full marks in math. Plenty good at your company.
全くその
Gotta
通り。
keep on learning.
秀吉さんの教育方針はいつも本当にご立派ですな。
ジョージもまだまだ半人前や。それを常に忘れんで勉強に励むんやで。
よしなさいよあなた。ジョージはいっつも一生懸命頑張ってるわよ。ねえ。
本当に立派ね。うちのジェシカにも爪の赤を分けてもらいたいわ。
ちゅまだテストの結果を根に持ってるのかよ。受験勉強は私なりにやってるって。こんな席でまで言うことはねえだろうよ。うせえぜ。
Once people started praising George for his diligence, the conversation usually turned to Jessica, who hated studying. Jessica made an openly displeased face as though she'd known this would happen.
やれやれ。ジェシカは勉強と一緒に少しはおしとやかな言葉遣いも学ぶ必要があるんじゃないかね。後ろ宮家の家紋を背負う一人娘がそれではみっともないな。
あら、これはこれで魅力的よねえ。時代は変わるのよ。男に食わしてもらうために定宿を装わなくてはならなかった時代はとっくに終わってるんだから。
そうそう。
Agreeing
や
with
っぱ
her?
エヴァおばさんは分かってますね。
Longer waits doing. What a unique idea. Yukishi. Very unique.
今日は頭痛が特に応えます。
大丈夫ですか？夏日おばさん、顔色が優れないみたいです。
ありがとう。大丈夫です。でも本当に月日が経つのは早いものね。半ズボン姿で浜辺を駆け巡ってずぶ濡れになって帰ってきた日がついこの間のように思い。
それはジェシカちゃんも同じよね。今じゃお化粧の仕方にだってこだわるレディーなんだから。眉にこだわりがあるのね。今日のあなたとってもキュートよ。
ありがとうございます。誰も気づいてくれなかったんで自信なくしてたとこです。
Full smile rose at Jessica's face as the results of her own studies were finally appreciated. Eva smiled back in the same way, and she turned that smile towards Natsui.
ダメよ、夏日姉さん。自分のこの小さな変化にも気づかなくちゃ。かわいそうなジェシカちゃん。一番最初にお母さんに気づいてもらいたかったでしょうに。ねえ。
いいんですいいんです。あの人そういうの全然気づかない人なんで。
ジェシカ、 母親をあの人呼ばわりとは感心できんね。謝りなさい。
言葉遣いについては後でよく言って聞かせます。
Uh-oh, she's in trouble.
お子様は邪魔だってんならそう言ってくれよ。私は席を外させてもらうぜ。ここは空気がよどんでるぜ。
ジェシカ。
Because we're still at the age where tests and entrance exams are pretty nerve-wracking. Recently, she clashed often with her mother, who was enthusiastic about her education.
失礼いたします。
Jessica, who was trying to leave the parlor in a bad mood, bumped into Shannon, who was pushing a serving cart filled with tea.
ああ、シャノン。私の分のお茶はいらないぜ。私は庭でもほっつき歩いてくる。
お嬢様？
シャノン、お茶が冷めます。
She just got here.
愛禅を急ぎなさい。
失礼しました。
Already being mean. Shannon hadn't actually done anything wrong, but Natsui, who felt like something shameful to herself had been shown, lashed out at her emotion. How dare you wait for 3 seconds? That was something that often happened in the Shiromiya family, but it seemed Shannon wasn't strong-willed enough to just accept it and move on. Shrank back and cowered while serving the tea. She had the unfortunate habit of making more mistakes when she cowered. Her pitiful appearance ruined the peaceful atmosphere that had existed a moment before. It wasn't really Shannon's fault, but she thought she might be the source, and felt a pressure on her chest. Her shaking fingers made the utensils clang, and you couldn't have called it graceful, not even just to be polite. The more pitiful she appeared, the greater the silence grew. The more irritated Natsui looked, and the more Shannon cowered. Shannon's thin neck felt like it was being suffocated and choked by the reaper known as stress. At that time, George spoke brightly, blowing away the stiff atmosphere.
これはいい香りだね。何の紅茶かな？
Saving the day.
これは。
言わないで。当てるから。これは特徴的な匂いだから多分わかるよ。アールグレイかな？
多分そうだと思います。
多分アールグレイで合ってるよ。台所に戻ったら紅茶の缶を見てごらん。
ほう、ジョージ君は紅茶に詳しいのかね？
お世話になっている社
Maybe I
長さ
should
んに
try black tea
紅茶
one
の
of these
詳しい
days.
人がいまして。
Having tea during these streams sounds like a nice idea.
講釈を聞いているうちに少しだけわかるようになりました。
ああ、おこのぎ食品の社長さんかい。あの人、そういううんちくは得意やな。
紅茶の名前って産地を示すことが多いんでしょ？じゃあこれはアールグレイという土地で栽培されたのが由来なのかしら
What,
ね。
a place called Earl Grey?
昔、イギリスにグレイ伯爵という
That
人がいた
sounded
そう
more
で
like a name than a place.
その人にちなんでつけた名前だそうだよ。ちなみに、この特徴的な匂いは茶葉のものではなくて、ベルガモットというみかんの親戚にあたる果物でつけたものなんだって。
I'm still a long ways from being able to speak Japanese. That ain't happening anytime soon.
そうなの。初めて知りました。そういう知識を持っていると、紅茶もより美味しくいただけますね。
酒もタバコも同じや。嗜好品はロマンをたしなむもんやで。こういううんちくが味わいを深めるんや。
薬の能書きと同じよね。夏日姉さんも愛用してる頭痛薬の説明書、今度はじっくり読んでから飲んでみなさいよ。
What kind of statement is this? Try reading the explanation on your favorite headache medicine?
それはいい。今夜試してみなさい。
ええ、試してみます。
シャノンちゃん、そのポットを開けてごらん。茶葉の中にベルガモットを乾燥させたものが混じっているのを見つけられるはずだよ。
Even her husband is laughing at her, dude. So rude.
はい
That looks like a new sprite
入
to
っ
me.
ています。オレンジの皮を乾燥させたようなものが混じっています。
Didn't you make the tea? How did you not know this?
うん。多分これがベルガモットだね。アールグレイの香りの主成分だよ。匂いは鮮烈だから味がきつそうな印象があるけど、素直で飲みやすい味なんだよ。ミルクティーにすると香りもまろやかになって素敵かもしれないね。みんなに注いでポットに余った分があったら、ぜひミルクティーにして飲んでみるといいよ。
But go ahead. I guess he said he'd been around for like 2 years, right? By the time the conference happened. So I guess he would be around.
あ、はい。
Tea with milk.
ありがとうございます。
George gave her a small wink. Shannon finally realized that George had kind-heartedly swept aside the tense atmosphere in the room, and he had done it for the sake of Shannon herself, a cowering servant. The Ushiromiya family did not pamper their servants. Any display of awkwardness would be harshly punished. It was rare for them to be given a helping hand like this. Thanks to George's kindness, Shannon managed to regain control of herself and finish serving tea without further incident. As long as she stayed calm, she could carry out her work elegantly and flawlessly. By the time the black tea was laid out on the table and its elegant scent filled the room, the atmosphere had completely returned to its former peaceful mood, and everyone praised George's knowledge. Shannon wanted to thank him for saving her, but it didn't look like she would get the chance. She decided to at least thank him inside her heart, praying to God that George would hear it as she pushed the serving cart away. You, George, I save.
ジョージ兄さんは昔からそういう時には助け舟を出してくれるんだよ。話題をさらりと変えてくれるというかさ。
Shannon and Jessica were in the rose garden. Jessica still hadn't returned to parlor after getting into a fight with her mother and was nonchalantly killing the time.
思い返せば、こういう助けられ方をしたのは今回が初めてじゃない気がします。
When I think back on it, I get the feeling this wasn't the first time he's helped. Whenever I made a careless mistake and George was around, I'm pretty sure he'd always naturally smooth things over and restore harmony. Maybe it wasn't something as direct as picking up a fork that had been dropped. We're coming back to this? That was his way of caring. Even servants have their pride. They want to fix their own mistakes by themselves. And if a guest lends them a hand, they lose face. They'll lose face.
読むのが得意なんだろうぜ。ま、ジョージ兄さんの美学なんだろうよ。
George is so cool and smart.
あの人、妙にキザったらしいところあるからな。
そんなことありません。とっても素敵な方だと思います。
ひょっとしてシャノン、ジョージ兄さんに惚れた？
For once, Shannon had disagreed with Jessica in a slightly forceful tone, which immediately caught Jessica's attention.
いえ、そういうことはないかと。
そういや、ジョージ兄さんってあまり浮いた話を聞いたことないし。あれ？確か家庭的な子がタイプだとか前に聞いたかな。そりゃいいぜ、シャノンぴったりじゃん。
George is so cool, even Jessica would marry him.
私がですか？
I don't know about that.
そんな。
I don't think he's that cool.
私にはそんな資格ありませんし。
資格はあるぜ。何年も昔から顔を合わせてて、半ば幼馴染状態。互いに男女であることを意識しないナチュラルな関係ってのは、一度意識し始めるとトントン拍子らしいぜ。
Would solve the Eva's issue of wanting George to be the next head. It would, wouldn't it? Let me start. Jessica loved teen magazines with this kind of story, and she was always getting excited talking about that kind of thing with her friends. She was very quick to pick up on love stories like this, so this wasn't the first time Shannon had been exposed to this kind of story. But this certainly was the first time she'd started to think of George as a member of the opposite sex. He was furniture, while George was an honored guest and a member of the Ushiromiya family. Until now, she assumed that even imagining any deeper relationship with him would be impermissible, though she hadn't thought of it. Since it was someone else's problem, Jessica poked fun at it, seeming to enjoy herself. It was all Shannon could do to hide her blushing cheeks. If George were to appear at a time like this, she'd have no chance of keeping her cool. They saw George come out from the entrance hall of the mansion. It looked like he'd seen them as well. He headed over, waving his hand. Shannon had to frantically try to regain her ordinary composure before George reached them.
おじい様がやっと降りてきたよ。
Whoa!
あとは大人たちの話になるからって追い出されてね。
He actually came out? How long ago was
そりゃ
this?
抜け出して正解だよ。じい様の顔を拝むくらいなら疫病神にキスした方がマシだぜ。
そんな言い方は悪いよ。ただ、おじい様は僕らのことを疫病神だと思っているかもしれないね。何しろ、事業用にお金を借りたいという話でやってきたんだから。
That's right. It wasn't the customary annual October family conference. Eva's family had visited to apply for a business loan from the Had family. Shinzo had vast resources, and he lent those out to his children. Of course, they didn't borrow money because they were living in poverty. How could they expand their business with the vast sums they wanted to borrow? Or how would they expand their business with the vast sums they wanted to borrow? How much interest would be attached, and how long would they have to repay it? This wasn't the sort of loan designed for the poor. It was a loan for those who were on the offensive. Shinzo strictly judged whether it would be worth lending his fortune, and afterwards he strictly oversaw its use. So Rokonjima would sometimes play host to the spectacle, where relatives visited and described their businesses to Kinzo. To the parents, these meetings burdened them with the strain of having to move a vast amount of money. To Jessica, who lived on this isolated island called Rokonjima, it was a precious opportunity to meet up with her cousins. Angel of Death, Undertale. I never played Undertale, so I wouldn't know. Well, being able to talk with the occasional guests such as George like this immediately cured the bad mood she'd gotten from that fight with her mother.
うちも全くケチくせえぜ。金なんて余ってるんだろうから気前よく貸してやりゃいいのによ。うちの親父もじい様もどうせねちっこくもったいぶってんだろうぜ。
お金を貸すとき、慎重になるのは当然のことだよ。もちろんうちの父さんも借り入れた分で事業を拡大し、しっかり返却できるプランを持って訪れてる。あとはプレゼンテーション次第ってところだろうね。
Tried playing it 3 times and couldn't get into it any of those times. What, Undertale?
本当は脇で見させてもらって
Well,
勉強したい
Deltarune.
んだけど。
I had fun playing Deltarune. Can't wait for... Oh, fuck. Next chapter is next month, isn't it? June 5th, was it? It's already May? Oh, man. I'm getting excited. I'm gonna need to make sure I can actually purchase the new chapters when it comes out.
母さんに追い出されちゃったんだよ。ちょっと残念かな。
George couldn't speak with the adults.
親方様はクラウス様やエヴァ様のことを今でも子供の頃と全く変わらないように叱られるようです。そんな姿を息子のジョージ様にきっと見せたくないのでしょう。
Shannon hung her head. She thought back to a scene familiar to those who worked in the mansion. Even Cross, who acted haughtily toward his siblings, was still treated like a child by Kinzo. Shannon herself had often seen Kinzo slap Cross and tell him to sit up straight. It was probably very embarrassing to be forced like that at his age. Taking care to avoid being present at times like that was one of the important responsibilities held by servants working there. However, the fact that Shannon had ended up witnessing such a scene meant that she'd messed up at least once in the past.
そうだろうね。それを察して姿を消すのも子供の務めかな。それにしても今年もこの庭園の花は本当に素敵だね。
Antoni? George stretched as he said that, and he smoothly changed the subject away from one that was a little gloomy. This time, Shanna noticed it too. This person, George, could sensitively figure out the situation and always change the subject to something harmonious out of kindness. It was so smooth that Shannon hadn't noticed it until today. Today, Shannon really had to admire the way George did that. Of the boys close to Shannon's age that she had known, nearly all had been classmates during her period of mandatory education. But they had all been young, and none had possessed the composure George had. Mere moments ago, he'd been just another guest, but right now she couldn't help but think of him as something more. However, such thoughts were mere distractions from her work as a servant. Shannon tried to chase them away with a small shake of her head.
どうしたんだよ。
あ、いえ、何でもありません。お茶のご用意をしましょうか。
Morty!
先ほどのアールグレイを改めてご用意します。
紅茶の名前覚えてくれたんだね。嬉しいよ。
さっきはお気遣いはありがとうございました。
Shannon was finally able to put her gratitude into words. If you wrote it out, it wouldn't be very long, but Shannon had needed a little spark of courage to say it out loud. But George played dumb.
何のことだい？お礼を言われるような覚えはないけど。
He seemed to be playing the gentleman in his own way, letting her know he wasn't doing it out of desire for gratitude. George's response seemed to be more or less exactly what Jessica had predicted. She couldn't help but burst out laughing.
なあ、こういうところ気ざったらしいだろ。
いえ、そんなことは。
Jessica poked fun at Shannon as the latter remained silent, red-faced. George didn't know the details, but he naturally joined in, laughing in the same way. The three of them lazily walked around the garden, catching up on recent events. George, as the oldest cousin, talked about his life experiences. Jessica talked about recent life on Rokonjima. And Shannon talked about her recent work. They kept going on about these trivial things. Even when Shannon heard the others talk about deeply interesting things, she never felt any particular interest in the actual content of their stories. She was nothing more than a servant, and she had no intention of delving into her master's lives. She simply wanted them to enjoy their time speaking with her, and would only pretend to listen intently and nod at the right moments. But for some reason, the things George talked about today seemed to catch her interest powerfully. Even things she normally ignored felt like they contained a trace of kindness behind the words. For some reason, she wanted to know more things about George, no matter how trivial. She wanted to know everything, so she stared fixedly at him. She thought that as far as looks went, this Ushirimiya George was probably about average and didn't stick out in any particular way. Yes! But he was diligent, serious, and had deep prudence, which allowed him to understand people's hearts and show concern. George is only average looking. Oops. But she never noticed the things before now. She may not have met him many times, but she'd known his face for many years. Even so, she hadn't noticed until Shannon, embarrassed by her own obliviousness, blushed. George, perhaps thinking that Shannon would listen intently to his stories, kept talking happily and at length about the things he's done and seen. But Jessica didn't miss that slight change in Shannon. So she decided to change the conversation to the topic she was sure Shannon was most interested in.
そういやさ、ジョージ兄さん、いい加減に彼女とかはできたわけ？
なんだい、やぶから棒に。
Normally, that reaction should have been answer enough. But for some reason, as she was now, Shannon wouldn't be able to understand it unless he said it clearly. She's so smooth. Expert change in the topic.
ジョージ様はお優しいですから、さぞや表になるだろうと。
いや、
So popular, so cool.
よせよシャノン、そういう追い詰め方はかえって意地悪だぜ。
私は別に意地悪のつもりは。
嬉しい勘違いをありがとう。残念だけど特定の一人の女性とはまだご縁がないよ。見ての通り容姿も並以下だからね。
It's below average, he says.
女の子を楽しくさせてあげられるような気の利いた話術もないし。
そんなことないと思います。それに男性の魅力は容姿では測れないところで決まるんじゃないかと思います。だからそのジョージ様はとても魅力的な男性じゃないかと思います。
Shannon was being uncharacteristically verbose. He hardly ever spoke at such length. George seemed fairly pleased to hear someone applaud his charm like this, but he was just a little surprised at the sudden high praise. Jessica, now sure her guess was spot on, appeared to be barely holding back laughter.
ありがとうシャノンちゃん。僕に魅力を感じてくれるような寛大な女性に早く巡り会いたいね。
きっと巡り会えると思います。ジョージ様の本当の魅力に気づいている女性はきっといえ、大勢いらっしゃると思いますよ。
He probably wanted to say that there was at least one girl very close to him. Shannon avoided saying that much, drawing a final line as a servant.
そうかな。さすがに照れるね。
He'd probably never been praised this heavily by a girl before. His face is turned just as bright red as Shannon's. As she watched over to him, Jessica giggled sadistically.
ジ
Sadistic?
ョージ兄さんもやがては素敵なパートナーと出会うだろうけどさ。今のままじゃきっと上手にパートナーをエスコートできないと思うぜ。勤勉でいらっしゃるようだけど、そっちのお勉強はからっきしみたいですよ。
Of that. That?
悪かったね。その勉強はこれから少しずつしていくよ。
相手もいないのにどうやって？恋愛映画でも見る？それとも秀吉おじさんに習う？
チェ、まるで鬼の首でも取ったみたいだな。こういう話では男は女の子にかなわないね。
Normally, when George and Jessica got together, their parents would say George is diligent and admirable, and Jessica is lazy and rude. So it was probably unbearably fun for Jessica to have their roles finally reversed. George realized this as well, so he resigned himself to being the one getting teased for once.
ジョージ兄さんさえいいならさ、シャノンでちょっと練習してみたら？シャノンを一日退屈させずにデートに連れてくんだよ。どうよ？
そんなお嬢様。
When she heard Jessica's audacious plan, Shannon's face turned bright red with a poof, and a donut of smoke started to rise from her head.
それはとても魅力的な提案だけど、シャノンちゃんに悪いよ。彼女の貴重な休日を奪うだけじゃない。彼女が本当に思いを寄せる人と二人きりで過ごす聖域に僕が割り込んでしまうことになる。そんな無粋なことはできないね。
私も思い人とかそういう人はいませんので、そういうお気遣いは、はい、無用なのです。
Shannon's blood had all rushed to her head, and it looked like even she didn't know what she was babbling on about. Jessica, who knew how Shannon normally was, seemed to be finding this hilarious. You're so mean! She couldn't hide her cackling laughter anymore.
そうなのかい？シャノンちゃんみたいな可愛い子が独り身なんて信じられないね。
私使用人ですから、男の方との縁なんてありませんし、
ってことは シャノンも将来素敵な男性を射止めるために交際の練習が必要だってことじゃないのかよ。
Oh, smooth
つ
plan.
まり二人とも互いの思惑は一致するわけだ。なるほど、こりゃいいぜ。
Jessica irresponsibly cheered the two of them on. By now, even George was hanging his head and turning red.
ジョージ、さっきから呼んでるわよ。聞こえないの？
When Eva appeared in what was already an embarrassing situation, both of them got even more flustered. Jessica watched and laughed loudly.
母さん、ごめんよ、話が込み入っちゃっててね。気づかなかった。
これはエヴァ様、大変失礼しました。
若い子たち同士で大層盛り上がってたみたいね。あなたたちもみんなお年頃だもの。そういう話題が尽きないのもよくわかるわ。
嫌ですね。エヴァおばさんだってまだまだお若いじゃないですか。秀吉おじさんとの馴れ初めを聞かせてくださいよ。
あらあら、そんなの言えるわけないわよ。本当にみんな若いんだから。
それで何、母さん、用があって声をかけたんじゃないの？
お父さんたちの話が終わったわ。おじい様にあなたの話をするからいらっしゃい。
僕の話？何の話かな？
今みんなでしてたのと同じ話よ。ほら、例の話。
ああ、別におじい様に話すようなことじゃないんじゃないかな。
何の話だよ。まさかジョージ兄さん、誰かと結婚するの？
それはおめでとうございます。
違うよ違うよ。特定の女性はいないってさっき言ったじゃないか。
威張ることじゃないでしょ。まったく。
Eva smiled bitterly, looking a little exasperated.
わかった。ジョージ兄さん、あれでしょ。お見合いだ。
お見合いですか？
まあね。
Surely, as a man, George wanted to find a partner by himself and bring her home with him. So it seemed he thought it a bit pathetic to meet his partner for the first time in a marriage meeting arranged by his parents.
お見合いというのはもっと年齢が成熟してからするものじゃないのかな。僕はまだ一人前になったって自覚すらないというのに。
もちろん即結納即結婚なんて焦る気は全然ないのよ。親睦を深めて年齢的にもう少し落ち着いてから籍を入れる形でも問題ないの。
Judging by Eva's forceful attitude in George's non-committal one, the others could catch a glimpse of the story behind his marriage meeting. They didn't know who George was supposed to be meeting, but it was surely someone who would profit Eva's family in a business sense. The very fact that they'd be satisfied with mere engagement to deepen the relationship between the two families rather than immediate marriage made it feel almost like a political maneuver.
結婚はね、好きになってからするものじゃないの。してから慣れることよ。感情だけで結婚すると必ず後悔する。身元のしっかりした人を生涯の伴侶に選んで、それから愛情を築いていくのも決して間違ったことではないの。
エヴァおばさん、それじゃ秀吉おじさんに悪いですよ。
私はあの人のこと大好きよ。いつまでも一緒にいて人生を共にしていきたい。
エヴァ様、素晴らしいです。本当にご立派です。
ありがとう。でもその気持ちは二人で夫婦をしていくうちに育んだものよ。そして今の私たちより未来の私たちの方がもっともっと仲良しだと信じてる。私は夫婦はそういうものがいいと思ってるの。
だからって好きでもない相手と結婚してもいいって論法にはならないと思うけどな。
だからって好きな相手なら誰と結婚してもいいという論法にはならないわ。結婚は一瞬。でもその後の夫婦生活はずっとずっと長いの。だから一時の感情に任せず慎重に相手を探すべきなの。そしてそれは人生経験の未熟なあなたよりお母さんたちの方がうまくやれるとは思わない？
No. Let the man choose.
それはそうかもしれないけど。
あなたは私の自慢の一人息子よ。どこへ出しても恥ずかしくないくらい立派に成長してくれたわ。バトラ君は籍を抜け、あなたが今やお父様の血を引く唯一の男孫。あなたにふさわしい相手は慎重に選ばなくてはならない。
As everyone related to Ushiroma, as everyone related to the Ushiromiya family knew, Eva adored George immensely. But that didn't mean she had pampered him. She had been strict with him and had raised him into a wonderful boy who wouldn't betray her expectations. That is why she treasured him so.
あなたの相手は決して母さんたちの損得で決めてなんかいないわ。あなたにふさわしい本当に素晴らしい女性に母さんが合わせてあげる。今はあなたの中にある青臭い若さがそれを疎むかもしれない。でもこれだけは母さんの言うことを聞きなさい。私があなたのためを思わなかったことが一度でもある？
それはないけど。
今はそれで結構よ。さあ行きましょう。お父様を待たせてるわよ。急いで屋敷に行きなさい。
じゃあごめんね、二人とも。また後で。
George bowed to the two of them, and after bowing once more to Shannon, he dashed off to the mansion.
じゃあおばさんも行くわね。楽しい話を打ち切っちゃってごめんね、ジェシカちゃん、シャノンちゃん。
いえいえ、気にしないでください。じゃあシャノン、私たちは行こうぜ。
はい。
大丈夫よ、ジェシカちゃんだってきっとそのうち素敵な出会いがあるわよ。ジェシカちゃんにふさわしい素敵な方が。
私と同程度ってことは成績の悪い男かな。なんだかうぜえぜ。
もちろんシャノンちゃんにもね、あなたにふさわしい素敵な男性がきっと現れるわよ。
はい、ありがとうございます。
Eva giggled and smiled as she approached Shannon's ear with a hand over her mouth, as though she was trying to tell a secret. Oh?
使用人風情のあなたにぴったりの相手が
Oh, she's...
と見つかるわよ。
Here it is.
義務教育に行かせてもらった恩も忘れて身の程を知りなさい。
そんなつもりは。
ジョージはお父様の血を引く孫の中では嫡男にあたるのよ。ひょっとしたら未来の後ろ宮家を背負うことになるかもしれない人。その期待に応えるためにたくさんの勉強を重ねて素晴らしい大学に入り素晴らしい成績を残しているわ。
Almost got through a scene of Eva being nice. That was close. It got real close. Holy.
そんなジョージと無資格無教養な使用人風情が釣り合うと本気でお思い？
Those malicious words all poured in Shannon's ear without spilling a drop. To Shannon, it was like cold water being poured in there.
私はそんなつもりは。
This was all whispered to Shannon in secret, and with the same smile as before. Jessica could only see Eva's expression, didn't think it was anything other than Eva telling Shannon some embarrassing story about love. Their secret conversation ended, Eva patted Shannon's shoulders as though he was urging her on.
大丈夫よ。あなたにぴったりのお相手がきっと見つかるからね。じゃあね、ジェシカちゃん。
I hate her!
また後でね。
はい、また後で。秀吉おじさんとの話 その時聞かせてくださいね。
いやーよ。
Eva laughed loudly. She headed back to the entrance hall. Behind Jessica, who was cheerfully waving her hand. Shannon reflected very, very deeply on those words of Eva's about knowing her place. It's time for me to take a serious look at how full of myself I've been acting. I forgot. I'm furniture. Furniture isn't human. So I am a being who must feel gratitude for even being treated like a human. I'm not permitted to wish for anything more. People sometimes develop affection for furniture they're used to abusing, but that is an emotion on the human side, and the furniture has no right to hope for such a thing. It's enough that furniture serves with simple honesty day after day. The feeling I got when talking to George-sama and Jessica-sama. The same as a forbidden drug to me. In other words, it may be an emotion I must never experience.
シャノン、先ほどからぼんやりが過ぎます。体調でも悪いのですか？
失礼いたしました。
Natsui's words were right on the mark. Even Shana couldn't believe that she hadn't noticed Natsui until she had called. Normally, it was essential that she focus on her cleaning at this time of day, but she spent all her time sighing and hardly making any progress.
たとえお客様がおられなくても、常に気を張っていなくてはなりません。そんな様では、後ろ宮家に仕える使用人として情けありませんよ。
はい、以後注意します。
もうじき、当主様と主人がお帰りになられます。書斎の清掃は済んでいますか？階段の清掃は済んでいますか？
申し訳ござ
How
いません。
dirty could things possibly get?
まだです。
ええ。ですから、ルノンにやらせておきました。
What, Luna?
あなたがもたもたと廊下を清掃している時間で、彼女は書斎と階段の清掃を済ませてしまいましたよ。
それは、丁寧にお掃除をしていたから、時間がかかってしまって。
Shana was simple and honest, so she would always carry out her tasks seriously and properly, without any omissions. So she was always slow with her work. In contrast, Luna cleverly avoided doing extra work whenever it was possible. So she could complete her jobs with a result that looked almost the same to an outsider, but in a much shorter time. In other words, she was a shrewd employee. Compared to that, it's probably fair to say Shannon wasn't very shrewd at all, talking back to Natsui when Natsui was in a bad mood. Of course, there was nothing that Natsui could stand more than a servant talking back. Her forehead creased and she spoke sternly. Yet her slow, admonishing style of speech was even more terrifying and finally made Shannon realize she had said the wrong thing.
ならば、存分に丁寧な清掃を心がけなさい。シャノン、あなたにこのまま大広間の清掃も命じます。当主様の大切な絵画が多数飾られ、後ろ宮家への賓客をお招きすることもある。誇り一つ残さないよう、あなたが納得するまで丁寧に清掃なさい。もちろん今日中にです。それを終えて私に報告するまで、食事も休憩も許しません。
Holy.
わかりましたね。
はい。
結構。使用人はその言葉だけを口にするように。次の口答えには、より厳しい罰を与えますから、よく胸に刻んでおきなさい。
はい、奥様、ご指導をありがとうございます。
どういたしまして。
Behaving as though her headache was troubling her, Natsui headed off down the corridor. But she couldn't see her anymore. Shannon hung her head and sighed. This is what happened when she had her head in the clouds. Even though I'm bad at everything I do, I should be able to at least carry out the cleaning as well as an average person can, right? Because I can't even perform that very well, that I'm crying so pathetically. What's even more shameful is that not only have I been unable to perform a single bit of cleaning well, but just now when Natsui was scolding me, I imagined that person appearing and rescuing me. George! If only George-sama were here. Would he casually step in and save me? Surely he'd show up cheerfully, intentionally acting like he didn't know what was going on. Simply change the subject and make me forget I've ever been rebuked by Netsui. I kept envisioning him, suddenly appearing from the other side of the door, or the other end of the hallway. I envisioned the kind of person who that would be an appropriate partner for him in a marriage meeting. I envisioned how unfitting I was for him. Eva clearly told me. It's been repeating over and over in my dreams.
姉さんは相変わらず不器用だね。奥様は今朝から虫の居所が悪い。黙ってうなずいていればいいものを余計なことを言うから。
カノン君。
Canon was suddenly there. The steps are always quieter than a cat's, and he never left any trace of his presence. He probably could have stood there forever, and she wouldn't have noticed him. The expression on Canon's face was one of hatred. He made that expression for Shannon, who didn't know how to do it herself.
奥様も、そしてルノンも地獄へ落ちろ。あいつは奥様がどこをチェックするか知ってて、そこしか掃除しない。さっきの掃除もそうだった。見ていたから知ってる。本当の意味での掃除なんかしてないんだよ。丁寧に掃除する姉さんに寄生してるだけの最低なやつだ。
そんな汚い言葉を使ってはダメよ。汚い言葉はカノン君の綺麗な魂まで怪我してしまう。だからせめて私の前ではそんな言葉遣いをしないでね。
Canon turned away as still sulking. It was a reaction that hid his true feelings, which were very like Canon. It was a reaction that hid his true feelings. It was very like Canon. A little happy. Getting mad for my sake.
大広間の掃除は大変だよ。僕も手伝う。
ありがとう。でも奥様に命じられたのは私だから大丈夫。カノン君にも自分のお仕事があるんでしょ。
汚らわしい仕事だよ。僕の魂なんてとっくに汚れてる。
Canon then hung his head and bit his lower lip.
手伝ってくれるという言葉だけで私は十分。カノン君も自分の仕事に戻らないとあなたまで罰を受けることになっちゃう。そしたら私は悲しい。
And I knew Canon's character well. Sometimes he didn't think enough about himself. I don't refuse forcefully to help me, even if it means neglecting his own job. And was a little sad at his goodwill has been rejected. He realized that what he was doing would only hurt her more in the end, and he gave a single small sigh.
わかったよ。姉さんも頑張って。
それに私にも責任はあるから。
姉さんには責任なんて何もないよ。
あるの。だからもう言って。
Canon-kun's face showed that he still hadn't completely accepted it, but without being any more obstinate, he disappeared. Bye, Canon. Even though Canon-kun came to give me words of comfort when I was down, even so, I was dejected again because it wasn't him. That in itself was a sin. I went far beyond any dreams the likes of me could be permitted to see. I don't know my place. Shannon, who had neglected breakfast, already felt her concentration begin to waver. But if she didn't finish up cleaning the reception hall, she wouldn't receive Natsui's permission to eat. That cruel Natsui who surely told the kitchen something to that effect. I have to respectfully receive Madam's punishment. That's right. My position in the world is furniture, and I've been intoxicated by a dream that's beyond me. Finished cleaning the hallway and went to the reception hall. Maybe my hunger made my nose more sensitive. I could sense a delicious aroma wafting from the kitchen, even though it was far away, and my empty stomach was encouraged even more. So I finished up here, I wouldn't get any soup. I just had to resolve myself to doing it. Several portraits were hung in the reception hall. One of those portraits was thought to hold a special meaning amongst the servants. Beatrice! It was the portrait of the witch. It wasn't its true name, but everyone in Mansion called her that. The name of the woman with elegant blonde hair drawn as the subject of that portrait was Beatrice. It was whispered that she might be the former mistress of Kenzo, the family head. That, and also that she was a great witch who had given Kenzo the gold of legend. The witch Beatrice, master of the night on Rokkenjima. She was gracious to those who respected her, but she would surely curse those who made light of her. It was in Shannon's character not to neglect rules and beliefs such as those. So she thought of the portrait as her other master, as that person her. Let me read that. She thought of the portrait of her other master as that person herself, and always treated it carefully, treasuring it. And become part of her daily routine to tell the witch, who only existed inside the portrait, the secrets of her heart. She was furniture. Furniture doesn't complain. Cannot complain. So she had no right to speak her mind about her difficult days. She had no right to open her mouth and say those words. So, she at least spoke her mind inside her heart. She spoke her mind inside her heart using words she couldn't say aloud, and protested to the formless witch. Of course, the witch didn't answer. She didn't console, and she didn't laugh it off. Shannon could only interpret the silence as she liked, as though the witch was responding agreeably.
ベアトリーチェ様、みすぼらしい私の話を聞いてください。
Shannon whispered, or Shannon wiped the dust from the witch's portrait. She spoke that inside her heart.
私は確かにエヴァ様の言う通り、無能で無教養な家具です。人じゃない。だから恋をする資格などないかもしれません。でもだったらどうして恋を知ることのできる心などお与えになったのでしょうか。
At that point, Shannon held back her tears for a moment. The sound of the rain, which had started falling, along with the chill air in the reception hall, made her feel as though her shabbiness had increased another level.
本当の家具なら心なんかない。だから人を愛したりしなくて済むじゃないですか。だから苦しまない。私も同じ家具なのに。どうしこんな
Oops.
苦しくて辛い思いをするなら、こんな心なんて与えないで。
Oh,
なるほど。
she speaks!
家具に心を与えたか。あれも時には愉快なことをする。
Even that man. The witch that never answered or laughed. Answered. And laughed. Was it my imagination? Was I hearing things? No, that's wrong. After all, the next words became a voice and I could hear them. Not with my heart, but with my ear.
人間は世界を構
What
成
is
す
this
る
music?
元素について紀元前の昔から探求を続けてきた。古代ギリシャ人たちは風、火、水、土の4つで世界の説明を試みたという。その後も数千年かけて人間たちはその4つにさまざまな元素を加え、5代、6代、7代、8代、12代とさまざまな解釈で世界を説明しようとしたが、唯一の真実である一なる元素を説明することはできなかった。
Bingo element.
しかし星の導きによって現れた一人の男が何かわかるか？
Shannon fearfully turned around. It's her! Right there, she existed. not as an illusion, but as reality. The contrast made by the lightning made it clear this was no mere daydream.
それは愛よ。
What is going on? The witch of the portrait elegantly held a golden pipe to her mouth and giggled. She laughed at the ignorance that causes humankind's thoughts to stray from the most simple answer.
その男は世界のすべてを愛で説明した。それこそが一男は最小の数で世界の構成を説明しきったのだ。なんとも単純明快にして豪快爽快愉快痛快。
What is she doing here? What is...
やがてその男の生まれた年は西暦紀元と呼ばれるようになったがな。
Jenna lost any words to speak. She thought that when first meeting an unknown guest, her first word should be... She thought that when... Fuck, when we get to the first glass break of this episode, I think we'll need to call it. I'm all sorts of out of it. Holy... Shannon lost any words to speak. She thought that when first meeting an unknown guest, her first word should be to ask that person's name. Without saying anything, Shannon knew this person's name, so she refrained. No, surely it would be the greatest disrespect for someone who lived or worked on this island to ask this woman her name. After all, she was the other master of this island, besides Kinzo.
ベアトリーチェ様。
いかにもわらわがベアトリーチェである。千年を経ても人がわらわを見て最初に浮かべる表情は変わらんな。
Which giggled at how Shannon's reaction didn't betray her expectations. Shannon realized that she had not met with a being that mustn't... Holy! Shannon realized that she had met with a being that mustn't be met with, and she took a step backwards. That's where the wall and the portrait were, so even as she gazed at the witch's portrait was touching her back.
お前の悩みは愛ゆえよ。それはすなわち世界の一なる元素、つまりこの世のすべてだ。それが満たされぬということは世界が満たされぬに同じこと。それは穴の開いた水筒に水を汲み続けるのに似ている。汲めども汲めども満たされぬ永遠の心の砂漠。人間の基礎にして全てにして現在。わかるか？知識の実を口にしたアダムとイブが知ったのは愛だったのだ。それを知ったがゆえに人は楽園を追われ人足り得たのだ。すなわちそれは愛を知り苦しむからこそ人であること。心優しき娘よ、そなたは誇っていい。それを知った今、そなたはもはや家具にあらず、そなたは今こそ人間なのだ。我が名にかけてそれを認めようぞ。凡庸の身には理解もつらき話か。まあよいわ。許すがいい。
And
久しぶりに人間と話すのでな。
is she gonna be here? Yes, yeah. Okay. Holy.
饒舌が過ぎたことを謝ろう。
Without waiting for a reply from Shannon, Beatrice laughed pleasantly for a while.
詫びと言ってはなんだが、わらわの力でそなたのその願望を叶えてやってもよいぞ。
The meaning of those words surprised Shannon even more than the witch's sudden appearance.
そなたを
思い人と添い遂げさせてやってもよいと言っている。本来ならばそれに見合うだけの対価を要求するところだがわらわは機嫌が良い。それにそなたはわらわへの礼を欠かさず今日までよく尽くした。それへの褒美としてやってもよい。
本当ですか？
Normally, Shannon would have been shocked and struck dumb by this seemingly impossible guess. However, almost as though she was already under the witch's spell, Shannon responded.
わらわの魔法にかかれば思い人と結ばれるように取り計らうなど造作もない。
Yes, of course. Shannon almost said that without thinking, but held back with her last bit of common sense. After all, this is a witch, a sinister being. The witch Beatrice is clearly trying to slip in through the cracks in my heart and make me prisoner. That sort of temptation, which so many fairy tale picture books warned me about when I was young, is right in front of me now.
イフもまた敬いの一つよ。心地よくはあるがこれでは拉致が開かぬな。わらわは確かにそなたらが意味嫌う魔女像から離れはせぬ。だがわらわは敬う者には好意を返す。それは人間も同じであろう。そのように身構えられて好意を返せる人間もまたおらぬと思うがな。
失礼しました。そんなつもりは。
Donna eventually realized how rude she was acting towards this guest, and she finally digested the words had been spoken to her in a short while ago. You are no longer furniture. Now you're human. And she reflected upon those words. Shannon felt as though the witch understood all of her worries.
さっきのその褒美の話って何ですか？
お前がその心を虜にする男と結ばれるように取り計らってもいいと言っている。わらわの肖像画を日々丹念に磨いてくれたことへの礼とでも思うがよい。安心せよ。対価は求めぬ。わらわは気前がよい。
Generous, huh?
だがな、対価は求めぬが頼みがある。
That's asking for something. Look, here it comes. Part of Shannon's heart set her a warning. This is what all those scary picture books she read when she was little had warned her
この
about.
島のすぐ近くの海に岩が覗き、そこに小さな鳥居と祠が設けてあるのを知っているか？
Shannon immediately remembered it. When you reached Rokunjima by boat, there was a Torian shrine on a reef that was too small to be called even an islet. I'm pretty sure Kumasawa-san told me its history, but I can't remember it well. A traveling Ugenja, a kind holy man, had built it or prayed there or something.
ええ、知っていますが、それが何か。
魔に通じぬ者に一から説明はせぬ。早い話がだな。あれには実はな、あの祠の中にある鏡が収められている。それをそなたに割ってほしいというのだ。
It was quite a suspicious request. Gunna didn't know the details, but anything stored inside a shrine would have to be something sacred. She wants me to break it? Why would a witch ask a human for help instead of doing it herself? There was no need for Shannon to speak of her thoughts aloud. Beatrice responded to Shannon's reasonable doubt before Shannon could give her answer.
あの鏡の魔力はわらわの魔力と相対する。人の言葉でうまく説明できぬな。例えれば食器の違いとでも言おうか。あの鏡はフォークで、わらわの力はスープなのだ。フォークでスープは飲めまい？あの鏡の押し付けさえなければ、わらわはスープを飲むのにぴったりのスプーンが用意できるというわけだ。
Oh man. So what's the idea here? Like after Shannon breaks it. Would you be able to take that mirror that Natsui had? She had some kind of mirror that was said to like repel magic or something. Maybe no, but the shrine's gone, isn't it? That mirror like detail was too specific to be like a one-off thing that's never mentioned again. Hmm. Oh, she'll use chopsticks when eating soup. Ramen maybe, that's a soup.
それさえあればスープも飲めるし岩ろうだって掘り抜けるぞ。
Wait a minute, this spoon thing. They mentioned something like that in the second tea party. Hmm.
目玉だってえぐり貫けるだったか。
何の話かわかりません。私の無教養のせいだとしたら謝ります。
こういうことだ。あの忌々しい鏡をわらわのために割る手間をかけてくれたなら、その褒美としてそなたの願いを叶えてやるということだ。今日のわらわは本当に機嫌がいい。そなたが望むなら願い事を変えて金蔵に授けた黄金を丸ごとくれてやることにしてもよいぞ。
Yo, gold?
お断りします。
なんと。
When she heard Shannon's word, Beatrice realized for the first time that her expectations had been betrayed.
理由があれば聞かせよ。誤解があるなら解こうぞ。
理由なんてよくわかりません。でも今日までこの島は平和で何も起こりませんでした。なら鏡を割らなくても今日までと同じ平和がこれからも続いていくはずです。
なるほどなるほど。そなたの言う通りだ。あれを割らぬなら割れぬ今日までと同じ日々が明日も明後日も続こうぞ。わらわが絶対の保証をしようではないか。
Absolutely.
ベアトリーチェの名にかけて言う。割れぬ今日までと同じ日々が明日も明後日も続こうぞ。
The unplayable days before this time will continue tomorrow and the next day.
それは永久に。永遠に。
I thought she was gonna stop there. Overwhelmed by an eerie illusion, mirror probably existed for the purpose of restraining the witch. So, if Shannon broke it, the person who stood to gain was supposedly the witch herself. Yet Shannon felt somehow that she had to do it for her own sake. It felt like some promise had been switched around. Some premise had been switched
わら
around.
わはあくまでも褒美としてそなたに思いを成就する機会を与えたに過ぎぬ。割ろうが割るまいがそなたの自由だ。割ればわらわはそなたの願いを叶える。割らねば今日までの明日が永遠に続く。そなたの願いは永遠に叶うことはない。わかるか？何を言っているか。
Okay, I see. The witch was speaking. She was pressing Shannon, saying that she must break the mirror if she ever wanted to be united with George. It was a declaration that Shannon's feelings would never be brought to fruition unless she broke it.
やめてください。
の聞きたくない。
そなたを苦しめたかったわけではないのだがな。まあいい。愛に苦しさを感じるも人間の醍醐味よ。その感情を存分に楽しむがよい。だが我が力を借りたいと願ったならいつでもあの鏡を割るがよい。そして我が名を叫び呼び覚ますがよい。わらわは必ず約束を守るだろう。これならば文句はあるまい。そなたに今すぐの決断を迫るわけではない。気楽であろう。
Was it really such an easy thing to do? It certainly wasn't. To Shannon, who was burning with infatuation and worried by love, being tempted constantly and eternally by a way out is truly a cruel trial.
この約束に期限は設けぬが、願いを叶える魔法には期限がある。その期限はわらわが決めるのではない。そなたの思い人が自ら決める。意味がわかるか？
わかりません。
そなたの思い人が愛のちぎりを結ぶべき相手を決めた
He
時
has
が
until he's
そ
married
の
off.
期限となる。わらわは魔女だが鬼ではない。
But you control demons.
互いを愛し合う二人を引き裂く魔法は持ち合わせていないのでな。
Tear apart.
そなたの思い人は近いうちに見合いに臨むそうだな。そなたは世界で一番その男のことを思っているかもしれん。だが世界で一番ふさわしいとは限らんぞ。わらわは見合いの相手を知っている。
I know with whom he'll be having his marriage.
その娘は世界で一番
That girl is the
後ろ
most
宮ジョージ
suitable.
にふさわしい。良い学校を出て良い成績を残し落ち着きがあって思慮深い。
Wonder who it is.
お前より美しく、お前より聡明で、お前よりふさわしい。
What cruel taunting words.
お前のような無知無能無教養の娘がどうしてふさわしかろうか。お前が一番知っている。お前が一番ふさわしくない。お前と後ろ宮ジョージが結ばれるなど想像するだけでも罪深い。愚かしいことよ。愚かしい愚かしい身の程知れい。義務教育に行かせてもらった恩も忘れて身の程を知りなさい。ジョージはお父様の血を引く孫の中では嫡男にあたるのよ。ひょっとしたら未来の後ろ宮家を背負うことになるかもしれない人。その期待に応えるためにたくさんの勉強を重ねて素晴らしい大学に入り素晴らしい成績を残しているわ。そんなジョージと無能無資格無教養
He's
な
repeating
使用の
exactly
風
what
情
Eva said
強い
earlier, huh? Holy.
やめろ。シャノンをいじめるな。貴様は誰だ。
At that time, as Shannon held her head, trying to protect her heart from the blade of Beatrice's words, Cannon ran in front of her. Cannon didn't care who this woman was. If this was an enemy tormenting Shannon, who he loved and respected as a sister, nothing else mattered.
カノン君、下がって。この方は。
Seemed Cannon also realized that he was standing. It seemed Cannon also realized that the being standing before him was the witch of the portrait, and also that she was something to be feared.
シャノンに褒美を取らせたかっただけだが、わらわの言葉が過ぎ、いじめてしまったようだな。それは謝ろう。
だが先ほどの約束はそなたへの褒美として残している。わらわの力が必要ならばいつでも呼び出すといい。その方法はすでに教えた。ではこれにて今宵は退散しよう。敵意の眼差しは心地よくあるが美容にはちと悪いのでな。
消えろ。お前が何者か知らないが、お前はシャノンを脅かしている。二度と現れるな。
And its words seemed to deeply annoy the witch.
言葉を選ばぬか下
The
船め。
lowborn.
わらわは敬う者に寛大だが敬わぬ者には残酷であるぞ。
But she still smiled. The witch's face began to twist itself. An impressive... The heck? A sound. An impressive feeling that couldn't be noticed with any of the five senses gradually filled the room. Even though they couldn't understand it, they immediately realized it was something terrifying. When you swim in the ocean and something large passes by in the water beneath you, you escape to land even before you learn what it is. That's exactly what this is like.
おやめください、ベアトリーチェ様。カノン君はまだ子供なんです。言葉遣いについては謝ります。
And placed his body between the witch and Shannon. There was tense sweat on his forehead. At that time, the witch certainly held Cannon's fate in the palm of her hand. He didn't even need to lift a finger. He held a grasp on his fate so tight that a single twist of her spell could easily crush it. Cannon understood that as well. He started sweating. His knees felt weak, arms spaghetti. However, Beatrice abruptly released that feeling of tension and laughed.
よかろう。そなたが求めるなら特別に許そう。カノンとやら彼女に免じて今宵は許して使わす。感謝するがよいぞ。さて今宵はこれで退散
How
する。
kind she is.
別れの挨拶に一つ土産を残そう。
お
二人とも左手の手のひらをこちらへかざせ。
And Beatrice grinned broadly and snapped her fingers. Their left hands stretched out in front of them against their will, their palms opened. It was a strange sensation, as though only their left hands now belonged to someone else. It felt like their left hand had become puppets, which were being pulled by strings hanging down from the ceiling.
これは何の真似だ。
Cannon resisted, but he couldn't retract his hand of his own free will.
騒ぐな。すぐに済む。
When Beatrice held her pipe aloft, a gold-colored sparkling dust came out of the smoke and hovered in the air. Butterfly. That sparkle eventually became several gold butterflies. The beautiful butterflies danced freely throughout the reception hall, forming a fantastical and beautiful world. And two of those butterflies alighted on the palms of Shannon's and Cannon's hand. There was a sharp pain as though they had been burned. The two of them tried to examine their palms that hold on their bodies. When the two of them tried to examine their palms that hold on their bodies, which had been there a second ago, it had gone without a trace.
あざ、これは。
There was now a tiny burn mark on the palm of her hand, and it was shaped like a butterfly.
これは何の真似だ。
Apparently, Cannon had the same mark on his hand. He stared at the witch hatefully.
単なる挨拶よ。他意はない。ただのあざに過ぎぬからほんの数日で言えよう。手当ても必要ない。それはわらわが確かに今日ここにあり、そなたと約束を交わしたことを明日に忘れさせぬための印だ。わらわとの出会いは刺激が強い。翌朝にわらわとの出会いを夢か幻と思い込み忘れようとする人間も時にはいるのでな。ゆっく
くり考えるがいいぞ、シャノ。そしてゆっくりと休み、明日の朝日に我が印を見て改めて考えてみるがいいだろう。わらわは何も強要せぬ。そなたが自らの意志で自由に未来を決めるがいい。もっとも欲する者の対価がその程度で済むとはな。悲恋をテーマに戯曲を書き上げた偉人たちが悔しがるぞ。それでは縁があったらまた会おう。久しぶりの会話は実に楽しかったぞ。さらばだ、家具ども。
Game making it really hard to dismiss Beatrice as being not real. Beatrice's body crumbled like smoke and blew away. It was a golden smoke, no, a cloud of gold butterflies. They scattered in all directions inside the reception hall, leaving a golden splash before disappearing into thin air. After that, only the cold silence was left. It was so silent it made both of them think they might have been daydreaming until just a moment ago. It was why the witch had left those marks. She had done so to make it impossible for them to think of this as a daydream. As Shannon and Cannon remembered the butterfly bruises on their hands, and the pain they felt when it was made, they kept standing still, stunned. That moment on, Shannon was tormented by days of suffering and conflict. What the hell's going on in the second episode, dude? So Jessica? Oh man, how much longer until like the last break? We kind of had like a little break there with the swap, little like borders rather, the top and bottom. I guess nothing really changed here aside from I guess the witch being here now. Holy. Been a couple hours, so I was thinking of taking a break, but also thinking of like just cutting it short, because man, I am slipping a lot more on my words than usual. If I had started at the normal time anyway, it would have been like around the 4-hour mark when I'd probably stop streaming anyway. Probably a decent enough cutting point. I'll probably actually try to get better rest and it's save on a new page for like there we go. Oi oi oi. Try starting earlier and playing a lot longer tomorrow. Fridays when I was meant to start again. I don't know what to think for this first episode, man. So, Beatrice appears before her, tells her to break the mirror, and she'll unite her and George. But I feel like in episode 1, Shannon didn't really give off the impression that she had met the witch, like, personally. Did she, like, forget? Was she made to forget that she had ever done that? something something isn't right. Something is strange to me about this. So Eva being an absolute a, a fucking bitch, dude. Holy. I thought it was odd that she was being like real nice and stuff for like the first half. Just so died on the first night, so she didn't have as much time as the others. True, but whenever she was around speaking about the witch, she would speak about it as like stories or like tales. It never gave off the impression that she truly believed the witch was a real thing. So like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I would need to play more, get further, and I guess deepen my thoughts on what this episode is even doing, dude. Alright, I'm probably gonna stop it early. It's only been a couple hours. Well, man, I am dying, melting. No, my brain is melting. It's getting harder to read the words, and there's gonna be a lot more reading. Probably will be a couple more hours before I get to like the next decent scene break. I think probably feels that way. So I think I'm gonna end here. Return tomorrow. Hopefully play for more than 2 hours. Try to go for the usual, like 4 or 5. I wasn't expecting it to throw me off this much. So, it, whoops. It really seemed like it was gonna be things, like events from George's perspective. But maybe episode 2 is mostly from Shannon's perspective? I don't know. Does it only... How far does it go beyond, like, breaking a mirror? There's a lot of things to wonder here. Many questions, no answers that I can think of. But yeah, I'm gonna end things here and we'll pick up this and go for longer. Much longer tomorrow. I need to take a rest, a nap or something. Maybe eat some actual food. My breakfast was extremely light today. It's been like, I need to eat more, eat better. Very bad with that in the morning. I was doing good. While and then I lost that well, what's the word I'm looking for here? Can't even think of the word. Routine? I think that's it. Lost that routine. I'm like waking up real early and cooking some actual food for breakfast before streaming and whatnot. Alright, I'm gonna be sitting here yapping, just thinking about what could happen forever if I don't stop now. So, as always, anyone want to watch me, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Tomorrow, hopefully around the usual stream time, 9 a.m. CST, and we'll play for longer, 4 or 5 hours, hopefully. Get through a lot more of the story. It's certainly got me interested. I can't even begin to fathom how things will turn out from here. Hopefully we find out tomorrow. Then, see ya.